Okay, so I had a question about a physical therapy org board, and I will be the first one to say I hate useless tools. So if your org board, I'm going to share my screen. The org board is actually a really effective tool to run your private practice. Let's see here, I pulled up a couple examples of what an org board should not look like. So something like this, director, um, executive director kind of rolls underneath is pretty well useless. This isn't going to do anything to help you run a better practice, run smoothly. This isn't going to do anything to get you out of day-to-day responsibilities. Another typical structure, something like this. There's no useful information. This is not what I'm talking about when I talk about a physical therapy, business, organizational chart, org board. What I'm looking at, what I'm talking about, and this is just a sample beginning to build the structure, because the org board really has to be built by you, by the practice owner, by the manager and the staff. It's useless if you just pull out a template. But I want to give you an idea what the structure is. So the first thing we do, the way we start, is we look at creating an activity list. An activity list is just everything that has to be done in your practice during a given day. Literally everything from cleaning the toilets, answering the phones, getting the mail, answering phone calls. This could be 100 activities. It could be 500 activities. But I threw a couple on here to kind of get the ball rolling. So answering the phone, and this could be further broken down into, answering the phone for new patients, answering the phone for patient follow-ups, for insurance questions. The more detail, the bigger the board, but the more effective it is as a tool to improve your practice's performance. So if you look across here, first thing we do, list every activity each person in the current organization does, and it might just be you. You might do everything. You might wear every hat in the organization, and that's totally fine. That's where we all start, or at least a lot of us. List out everything from answering the phone, cleaning the bathroom, ordering supplies. Don't worry about who's doing the activity right now or who's supposed to do it. Just focus on getting a list of every activity. Next, we need some metrics. We're PTs, we do things objectively. We want, best practices. So once you have a long list, start to determine a success criteria for each activity. For example, if my responsibility is cleaning the bathroom, how often do I clean it? And how do I determine if it's clean enough? Those are important factors. We need an objective measure to improve the performance of our staff. Once we have the list of activities and the measurement criteria for those activities, we want to start to categorize them. Now we put those activities in categories. It doesn't matter who does it. So answering the phone, if we're talking about answering new patient calls, that's probably going to go under an administrative category, a front desk category. If we're talking about answering the phone to handle billing questions, answering the phone still falls under front desk, but then they route it to the billing collections department. So we want to start to now kind of categorize each activity. Once every activity is categorized, we need how-to procedures. And again, I'm not one for busy work, but the idea is that we want a procedure in place so somebody knows how to answer the phone, how to clean the bathroom, how to route calls to the appropriate people. If we don't have it spelled out in black and white on paper, we rely on the person we're hiring or working with to figure it out. It becomes their job, dependent on them. We might have great people, but what happens when those great people leave? So the idea is we need to have a procedure in place that in detail outlines every part of the activity, including how we judge it, how we measure it, and what success means for that activity. The goal of every person in the organization really is to put themselves out of a job. The best people we have in the organization come in, they learn the systems, they follow the procedures, they improve the systems because they can always be improved, they update the procedures, and they do it so well that the next person coming in to fill their shoes barely has any work or needs very little queuing. You know, I always say the kind of the gold standard is a stranger walking down the street should be able to walk into my clinic and answer and handle a new patient phone call because all the procedures are laid out. The scripting is done, the procedure is done. They should not have to come to me or a supervisor to ask a question. All the questions should be answered in our procedure manual. So once we have that, you know, that's really what our Ord board is about. And so here in this second section, I just threw a couple examples up real quick. For example, okay, so answering the phone is the activity. We have a procedure in place for how to answer the phone. What do you say when you pick up the phone? In our facility, for example, we look at the caller ID before we answer the phone. If it's an established patient and we recognize the name on the caller ID, we'll pick up the phone and say, "Good morning, Mrs. Smith. This is Tony. How can I help you today?" Or "This is Tony at physical therapy. How can I help you today?" We have the technology to see who's calling, and every time the patient on the other end is surprised. So these are some little things that are in the procedure that set your practice apart from the other practices. But regardless, so answering the phone, we have the procedure. How do we determine success? One example, and this is just one example, I don't like any of our incoming calls to ever go to voicemail. So a measure of success is the number of voicemails divided by the number of calls answered. You know, I want that to be lower than 10%. If I get 20 calls in a day, I want less than 2 of them to go to voicemail. You know, sending faxes, the number of faxes sent, obviously it's dependent on how many evals are done, how many progress notes are done, what are you faxing in the first place. But the bottom line is, if my administrative person is responsible for sending faxes, the more faxes they send, the better their performance. If they send more faxes this week than they did last week, that's a great move in the right direction. Now they're going to be motivated potentially to get the clinical staff to do more evals, to generate more faxes that can be sent. You know, new evals scheduled. One of the metrics we use is how many days it takes from the day we handled the phone call to the day the new evaluation, the new patient actually gets in for that first appointment. The fewer the days, the better the performance. So if I set a metric of less than 2 days, that gives me some objective data. Now that could change, that could get higher, that could get lower, but the person responsible for that stat has to know what success looks like. And so then we take all that 150 activities and list them down here with their performance criteria. Pick up where I left off. Typical Ord board is going to look something like this. I just chose admin, clinical, and marketing. It could be admin, clinical, billing. It could be admin, billing, clinical, marketing. It could be anything. Within each category, you know, I broke it up into reception, and usually what we do is reception, front desk, billing, collection, you know, physical therapy. You might have physical therapist assistant in their own column. We usually just lump them in under physical therapy. And then, you know, so I will copy that, and obviously that's going to go under the physical therapy requirement. New eval scheduled. I think I've got that down here. Schedule new patients. You know, home exercises delivered. That's going to jump under here. And you just start to fill in your chart. Then once you have your chart full, and what you might end up doing is you say, you know, okay, I've got 50 things under front desk. I know one human front desk person can't do it all. So then I'm going to go ahead and break it up. Let's say I take this, move it down, take this, move it down. But the idea is either here, I'll put, you know, the name of the person responsible. hang on a sec. There we go. I'll put the name of the person responsible, so I'm just making up a name. Jeff Smith, and then maybe this one is, you know, Marsha Jones. And so then I usually color those. Oops. You know, and so that's what the org board might look like. So I hope this helps. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for, but the idea is your organizational board is a functional tool. It has a purpose, and it should be used as such. If you have any further questions, I mean, this thing can be fleshed out a lot, but I think you have to create it yourself because every practice is a little bit different. So good luck. I'm going to share this on Facebook. If anybody else is interested, I'll see if I can get this as a file out, maybe on a shared drive. Let me know if you have any questions. Best of luck. Thanks.